All right, here we are live. Let me open the comments up so if there's any questions, we can get to those. Hi, how are you? Excuse my spelling on that. Got the microphone in front of the keyboard. That's not always the best way to roll. So anyway, I hope everybody is having a nice weekend so far. And I'm happy that you can join me either on the live or on the replay. So we're in the midst of a 21-week program here that I'm offering free through this Facebook group so that you can get a really good substantive roadmap on how to get from point A to point B to point C to getting paid using real estate investment as a catalyst to drive revenue and drive profits for your business. And as I always say, the roadmap will only get you so far. You can be successful with the roadmap. The truth of the matter, as I've said in a couple of recent emails out to my list, is that look, even with as much detail and granularity as I put into these live events, the sad truth is that trying to drive profits with real estate investing without guidance, without quality coaching, means you have to depend on presentations like this, videos like I have on YouTube, which I don't really think there's anything that you're going to find that's better in terms of giving you the education. However, if that is not coupled with guidance, even with my program, the majority of you aren't going to be successful with it. It's just the sad truth. About 95% of people who try to go into real estate investing, who just go to a seminar or use some sort of video tutorials like these, they don't get to the other side. They end up getting discouraged because they get nuanced out of the business. There's something that isn't covered in those videos where they need some tutoring, some leading, some coaching, some counseling. And that's why guidance and having a quality coach, it doesn't have to be me. There's certainly other quality coaches out here. You might pay a lot more and get a lot less, but there's other people who can lead you to the other side. And I'd submit to you that when somebody does handhold you, as long as you do the work, it's very close to 100% of the people will have success with real estate investing, because we're literally walking you through the forest instead of you trying to navigate from a map that's just static. So with that being said, I highly recommend that you consider that. If you want to schedule a strategy session with me personally so that you can learn what this would entail, what things could look like for you financially, go ahead and schedule that. I believe you can do that at termsdaddy.com. I'm trying to think of what the extension is, but I think you enter your email, you hit show me how, and then up pops a calendar, or just message me. Everybody in here should have access to me on Messenger. If you haven't friend request me. Otherwise, some of my messages are going to junk, and then I can get you a calendar link so we could schedule a call if that's the right thing to do. So what I wanted to add to that equation I just gave you is that, so if so many people fail from videos and courses like this where there isn't coaching, because let's face it, the vast majority of you haven't even scheduled a call. I mean, there's a couple thousand people in this group. I haven't talked to a couple thousand people. So you're in here trying to learn from free information. Hey, I'm cool with that. Fair game. But I'm just telling you that, the odds are not really in your favor, regardless of how good I do on here. Now, having said that, 5% of folks who just watch these videos can be massively successful. Okay? 5% can be massively successful. So it's not, it's not, hold on a second, my dog is eating something here. No, back up. My bad. Bad doggy. So look, I do this because I know that, look, 5% of a group of 2,000 people is what? That's like, what would that be? That would be over 100. It would be 100 people. 100 people can be massively successful, and that makes me feel pretty good. Now, I'd rather you be in the coaching, not because I get revenue from the coaching, but because when I get you really good at it and there's trust that's developed along the way and you see how we do deals and there's a relationship, a lifelong relationship, generally it means that I'm in play for much bigger deals that'll come across your desk where we can joint venture. So I don't really make money on the coaching. I make money on the deal flow that comes as a result of me getting you very, very good at this, and then you getting in the way of deals that might require a little bit more expertise. They might be a little bit more complex. As you get good at the residential, the single family homes, which is where everybody can make money rather easily once you learn all this, it's not that hard to make money on single family homes. But when you get in the market and you get successful with that, you're going to come across land deals, commercial deals, all kinds of development deals, and that's where you might need a little bit of help. And when those deals come my way, that's where I can make big money. So that's part of the reason why I do it. I'm a nice guy, I'm an altruistic guy, but I'm not doing this entirely out of the goodness of my heart. I love that 100 of you will be very successful without my personal relationship with you, but I also like that some of you will be smart enough to come into the coaching, take the accelerated path, and we can get you to the other side to the extent that you're willing to implement these techniques, and let me help you calibrate along the way so that you can have the greatest success in the quickest amount of time. So with that being said, what we've done is we've covered so far during these 21 weeks. And by the way, I've left these videos up. You can go back and watch them. I think I have them on YouTube. I also have them in the events tab in here. You can go back and watch what you may have missed already. But what we've covered, top level view here, is we covered the full-on strategy, which allows you to buy any house from any seller in any market without using any of your own money or any of your own credit. We simply ask the right questions and plug the seller into the right slot. So you learn how to do that. Your conversion ratio goes through the roof because you're not forced to try to get a house at 60 cents on a dollar. You're not forced to find a house that has enough equity where someone can even do that. You're able to simply learn if they're willing to sell the house, and then learn what they are going to do once they understand their alternatives. And once it is clear what they are going to do, it's going to be something that we can service, and we can monetize that for the seller and for us. So your conversion ratio goes through the roof. But you got to know what to say. You got to know what to say. So the next thing we covered was the approach. How do we approach the sellers? And we went through that with scripts, whether it's you, whether it's a virtual assistant, some things that that will help you. I believe it helps you to have a realtor license. I don't believe it hurts you like a lot of folks, have suggested. I really don't think it hurts you. It's not required. I don't personally have one. I have realtors on my team. But I think it's a good idea to get one. If I was coming in brand new, I would probably get one. I would definitely get one, actually. And then where that leaves us is, so you've got the strategy, you've got the approach, and you've now put it out there with the seller that there's alternatives to the way they sell their house where they can get more money or possibly get a better deal, where their money and their equity isn't siphoned away by realtor commissions and discounts and concessions and possibly paying part of the loan points for the buyer, and the time that it takes to actually get it sold, waiting for a loan to come in. They can have this off their plate right away and actually have better terms on the deal. So oftentimes we get questions. Well, what about this? What about that? And that's what we've been covering over the last 3 weeks. And we're in the 4th week of that. And there's still quite a lot of objections, concerns, and that we need to cover. So I'm going to rifle through the rest of these, and I'm going to try to do it as clean as possible, staying true to the script instead of doing a lot of the ad-libbing that I've done over the last 3 weeks, because I think that's what's thrown us behind a little bit by, just responding the way I naturally would. But I think what you want to do is you want to get as close to these answers that I'm going to provide you as possible. Now, if you haven't seen the first few weeks of the objection handling, to be quite frank, though those are the most important ones, those are the objections that come up the most, but these are ones that also come up that you ought to have an answer to. When you have the answers to every possible scenario that could come up, and I've got 31 scenarios here, okay? I haven't seen a new objection that isn't on this list in a decade, okay? We've got it covered. Once you learn these, you're golden. You're golden. You can get on the phone. You just be yourself. You already know the answer. It's like knowing your multiplication table. It took you a while to get to know it, but once you know it, I don't care if they say 9 times 7 or 8 times 4, you know the answer. Same thing with these objections. They hit you with, how do I know you're going to make the monthly payment? Boom, you know what to say. Hey, well, I'm going to need 10 to 20% down if we do this. Boom, you know what to say. You got to have all that in your arsenal when you get on the phone if you want to be effective. Okay, and again, that's why I can't emphasize enough. It's really valuable to have the coaching so that we can make the proper adjustments along your real estate journey quickly to correct deficiencies in what you're doing so that you could get more deals more quickly. All right. So because I have quite a few objections, I probably will go past the half-hour mark here. I hope you all don't mind, but I'll try to stay as true to this as we can. So where we left off last time was where so the seller is now open to this idea of receiving monthly payments or renting it to us for a period of time, giving us the option to buy it during the term of our lease, or just straight up selling it to us where we get the deed and we make payments over time until we pay them off in full. But oftentimes the seller will say, well, I don't know, man, what if the people that are living there, since I know you're not going to own or occupy it, what if the people that you have in there, what if they tear up the property before I get paid off in full? I can't live with that risk. And you got to know what to say to that. Okay? So here's the formalized answer that we go through in my world, which is, hey, look, that's highly unlikely because the people that we're putting in there, they're buying the home, okay? And they take care of it as if it's already their home. Remember, they're going to have a good chunk of money up front sitting with us so that we can get their loan to come in. The one that gets you paid off in full. The plan isn't for you to get this house back. Now, they don't want to lose that. So, if something crazy like that did happen, and it never does, to be perfectly candid, but if something like that was to happen, it's my responsibility. It's not yours. And actually, the agreement that I give you protects you in that way so that I'm responsible for any maintenance. I'm responsible for any repairs. You don't get that with a normal tenant. You don't get that in a normal situation. So next week, I'll show you, I think next week, I think it's in a couple of weeks when we go through that particular agreement, because a lot of times we're buying the property, right? So there isn't really this contemplation of people tearing up the property. It's more like on a lease where people get concerned about that. But you explain to them the fact that you have the option on it means you plan on exercising that option. You're not planning on giving the property back at the end of the lease. And the people that you have in there, it's the same thing. But if something like that was to happen, because the way we wrote our agreement, it's on us. And I'll show you how the contract that we use works to protect the seller in that way. Okay? Now, another question will come up is like, yeah, man, I'm really liking the idea that I get more money on this thing, but I can't live with having to foreclose you off if I sell it to you. And I certainly don't want to be involved in any kind of an eviction. So, what if I have to foreclose? What if I have to evict? Now I'm pausing because I want you to think to yourself, do you know what to say? Are you going to be like a humana? And then you're going to scare the seller off if you don't know what to say. You got to have this in your brain so that you could be cool, calm, collected. And simply answer the question. Hey, that's extremely unlikely that you'd have to foreclose or evict. Okay, it's very unlikely that you'd have to do that. Remember, we collect a significant amount of money up front from our buyer to ensure that something like that doesn't happen and to deal with it if for some crazy reason it did. Is there some reason that I've given you to think that we wouldn't or couldn't pay you? And you put the onus right back on them. Now it is true to say, well, I don't know you, this and that. And we talked about that last week in terms of how you handle that. Okay, we're going to be making the payments to them independent of whether our buyer pays us. Why? Because we have a whole bunch of money in the kitty that we already got down payment before we even gave them the keys to potentially deal with these kinds of problems if they occur, which they almost never do. So anyway, you got to know how to handle that. Now, how about this one? Oh, you're one of those flippers. You're one of those investors, right? Folks, don't lead with people that you are a real estate investor. Not that you're trying to hide it. You are a buyer. You are a buyer of their property. The only thing that sellers really care about is the deal that they're going to get. So when someone asks me if I'm an investor, I don't really get sidetracked by that. Just say, hey, I suppose, but that's really, it's a label and it implies that I need to get some kind of lowball deal on your house. And as you can see, I'm willing to pay full price on this. Investors aren't really known for doing that, are they? So I'm a buyer, and I'm a buyer who's willing to pay you full price. You just got to be willing to be a little bit patient and let me pay you for that patience. Cool? And you just sidetrack that whole issue of, are you one of those fix and flippers and, trying to get a house at 60 cents on the dollar? Disarm them from that. Okay? Now, excuse me, that one of the things that allows us to be so profitable across the spectrum of options that a seller has is that we either are going to get a deal based on the answers to our questions that's so good that we close right away, or we're going to get a deal that we're not so comfortable with, but we'll get 90 days to close, enabling us to go out to our market, find our buyer, and then simultaneously close, making the spread between what our buyer brings in and what we have to give the seller so that we don't carry any risk. Those are called 90-day closes. So sometimes we'll do deals like this. So if, let's say, somebody wanted 5-10% down or something, and I don't want to give them that, but the rest of the terms of the deal were really good, I might say, well, look, let's write this up with your terms, okay, and I'll go out to my market and see if I can identify my buyer. I wouldn't take it on in the first place if I didn't think I could get you to the finish line in the end, but I don't want to get in front of that big of a payment because it's probably top of the market until I've gone and lined my buyer up, and then we'll just simultaneously close. Fair enough? And then they might say something like this. Well, I don't know, man. Why should I don't want to tie up my house waiting on you to maybe buy the house for 90 days. I'm pausing again. It's a reasonable question, isn't it? Do you know how to answer it? Here's the way I do it. So the minute we agree to move forward, we begin to launch a massive buyer campaign. We use our own money, our own energy, our own time, our own resources and expertise to attract the best buyer for your house. At the very worst, you'd lose a little bit of time, but for us, we'd lose all that money, time, energy, and resources. Now, if that were to happen, you'd have an incredible amount of information about the market response to the terms and the price that you want for your house. But the bottom line is that if I didn't think I could get the best buyer, I wouldn't take this on. And you have very little to lose compared to us. Further, if you go it alone, it's very likely it'll still take 90 days, and you almost certainly are going to have to pay a realtor commission and take a price discount and take inspection concessions and various other headaches that sellers have to go through. You can avoid all that with us and get a higher price in the end with far less hassle. So given that, isn't it best for us to get this thing written up with your terms and let me get to work on it? And then you deal with what their response is to that. Sometimes their response will be something like, well, send me a little bit of information on your company and your proposal. Don't fall into that smoke screen trap, folks. I mean, I've seen this happen all the time. Again, a good reason to have coaching. You watch a bunch of videos, you learn how to do this, and then somebody says, well, send me some information on your company, your proposal. You're like, oh, I got a good one on the line. Oh, I got a good one on the line. Let me spend all day typing up an email. Oh, do I have it just perfect? Did I say this just right? Did I explain that? Did I teach them the seminar here on my email? And they were just BSing you the whole time. You wasted a whole bunch of time doing that. Guys, that's a smoke screen objection. You don't have a proposal for them until you know what they're willing to do for you. So when someone says, hey, yeah, just, send me some information on your company and your proposal, I don't go getting excited about that. I tell them, look, I'd be happy to do that if I actually had a proposal for you. I wouldn't even know what to propose until you tell me what you're willing to do. Now, I'll gladly do that if we can agree on the price and terms that work for you, but you're going to have to tell me what works for you. Shouldn't we finish discussing that before I end up writing anything up? You know what you'll do better than I will. Remember, folks, they put a price out into the market. They put a price offer out into the market. You may have just exposed them to the idea of taking monthly payments so that they can get more money, but they haven't fully thought through what they'd be willing to do, so we have to ask them. And we have to learn, what is their offer into the market under this type of deal structure? And when we learn that, that's when we can send them a proposal, not ahead of time. Okay, because they're just smoke screening you. I'm not going to send anybody something in writing if I don't know they've orally already said they take it. I want to know what they will definitely positively do, what comes out of their mouth that they will definitely positively do. It doesn't mean that I'm going to do it yet, but I want to know what they will definitely positively do, and then I'll send them paperwork to verify, will they even do that? And if they won't even do that, then what was the point of me making a proposal? So give them what they want, find out if they're willing, then do your due diligence, and then come back in. And if you have to renegotiate. If you don't, you just take the deal as is and make money on it. That's what we learn how to do here, okay? Now, other times people are going to be like, well, I think I just want to sell the traditional way and get cashed out. Okay, in this case, you got to go back to that script that I showed, that I went through a couple weeks ago. Remember, it's always a trade-off. It's always a trade-off. Either they're gonna take the trade-off of getting less money for their house because they got to pay realtor commissions, they got to pay buyer discounts, they've got to pay more prorations on their taxes, they've got to pay more insurance, they've got to pay their own closing costs. There might be inspection concessions. There might be a request to pay buyer's loan points. There's home warranties, all kinds of things that net them down, not the least of which is a realtor commission. So they get less money. So it's a trade-off. Hey, you can do it the traditional way. But remember, realtors have a monopoly on that buyer, and you are going to pay for that. You and your house are going to pay for that one way or another. So that's one trade-off. The other trade-off is with me, but you get a lot more money. Most people, when they sell their house, they're trying to get the most money out of it. So if you're in that same camp of wanting to get the most money out of it, then the trade-off that you take is you just don't get it right away. If it's more important to get for speed and doing things in the customary fashion than it is to get the most money out of the house, then do it the traditional way. I'll help you with that. But if you want to get the most money out of your house, then you have to be just a little bit patient. I'll pay you for that patience, and then we'll get you, we'll have this thing off your plate. So when someone tells you, no, I think I just want to sell the traditional way and get cashed out, don't beg and plead and be like, why do you want to do it that way? They taught me at the seminar that this would be easier. Don't beg and plead, people, man. Look, it's like this. Oh, okay, cool. So really what you're saying is you're willing to trade off getting a lot less money for a potentially speedier transaction versus getting a whole lot more money in exchange for a little patience. And a lot of times people will challenge you on that. And if they challenge you on that, you can go through the things that I just went through without it sounding like you're begging and pleading. You're helping them make a decision on which trade-off they want. It is a trade-off either way. Life is a series of trade-offs, right? All right. Here's another one. Will you personally guarantee payment? Sometimes you'll send over the agreement, they'll talk to an attorney or something, and then it's like, hey, we need you to personally guarantee the payment with your name instead of your company's name or in addition to your company name. Okay, well, I don't do that. And what I'll tell them is look, my company is responsible. It doesn't mean you can't overcome the objection. Okay, here's the way to do it. My company's responsible. I run the company. But as a matter of policy, we don't go putting our personal names or personal guarantees on the houses that we buy for a myriad of reasons. But the good news is this, is that there will be a personal guarantee from my buyer who does guarantee payments on the house. So there is a personal guarantee on the house. And as long as that's in place, you're very well protected. That's fair, isn't it? Now, if they press you on it, on why and wherefore, you can go a little deeper if you want. And I'll say, well, one of the reasons is privacy purposes. We need that given the volume of houses that we're buying. If we personally put our name on every house we bought, we'd be a target for predators. So we avoid that. Also, there's only so many personal guarantees that we can have out there before the person exhausts their ability to get credit for things like cars, houses, other items. And my spouse would kill me if I began mixing business assets into our names in a way that impacted our personal credit needed for our personal finances. You don't want me in trouble with my spouse now, do you? Have I given you some reason to believe that that's necessary? Well, look, okay, so if they're not going to back off on that, it's okay. Again, guys, we're just asking questions. Okay, we give them things to think about, we ask them a question, and we take their response and we move them into the right slot. It's like taking them through a maze. Okay, so I'll say, look, if you really need that personal guarantee and you don't want us involved, what we can do is when I get my buyer who will have a personal guarantee, I'll just assign my agreement with my buyer back to you and you can take it over. Okay, and that's because we get a personal guarantee from them because they're the one who's going to occupy the house. And you're protected indirectly by that if you allow us to stay in between because we're managing it. But if you have to have it directly, we'll just step aside and assign our buyer over to you. Cool? That's the way we do that. That's the way we handle that. Guys, gals, I'm not saying that these objections 100% of the time are going to get you over the hump with that seller, but if you talk to enough sellers, there's going to be some that will be agreeable to these terms. These are the optimum answers. This is not snake charming somebody into submission. That doesn't happen. Okay? People are going to do what they're willing to do. Your job is to help them see their alternatives and to help them make the choice that makes the most sense for everyone involved. You can plug them in to whatever they choose, even if they want to use a realtor. That's why I say get a realtor license. We can help them that way. Okay, there's no situation where they're going to sell that house and we don't have the ability to help out because they ain't going to get a buyer for sale by owner that's not represented by a realtor unless it's an investor or somebody doing something, like what we're doing, or they're going to take it in the shorts one way or another because the realtors have a monopoly on the bank qualified retail paying buyer because those services are free to that buyer. So trying to go it alone to avoid a realtor commission is seldom effective. There's more than 90% of the deals that go down that way. It's either a buyer represented by a realtor or someone that ends up picking up the listing. So we can help them no matter what. We just got to plug them into the right box. It's not a matter of you got to beat them with a hammer submitting to these objection responses, but these are the optimal ways of answering the questions. All right, now they might be like, hey, I'm in no hurry to sell, I just put it on the market, maybe I take you up on that offer if I can't sell it in a couple months, but for now I'm just waiting for a cash buyer. And then we'll say, well, I can understand completely why that looks attractive. That does have trade-offs too. And aren't you really saying that you're willing to trade off taking a lot less money for a potentially speedier transaction versus getting a whole lot more money in exchange for a little patience? It's basically the same situation that I just outlined. Now, a lot of these folks will fancy themselves capable of doing the exact same thing that we're doing, right? And they're going to say, hey, if I'm going to accept monthly payments, I'd rather just keep it and rent it out myself. What are you going to say to that? Here's what we say. Well, I understand that completely. It makes sense if you want to be a landlord. If you want to be a landlord and take calls from needy tenants at all the worst times, go watch the movie Pacific Heights and see if you still want to be a landlord. If any of y'all haven't seen that movie Pacific Heights with Michael Keaton from back in the 80s, actually maybe I shouldn't tell you to watch that because it'll make your skin crawl a little bit as far as being a landlord. But remember, we're not trying to be an accidental landlord here. We're placing tenant buyers in here, people who don't bring the kinds of problems that they experienced in that movie. But you can tell the sellers to watch that movie and back them off of that. But look, it's, hey, I understand. That makes sense if you want to be a landlord and take calls from needy tenants at all the worst times. But with me, it's different. I'm going to guarantee all the maintenance on the property. I guarantee the repairs. You don't have to do a doggone thing. That the only landlording that you do, in fact, is the collecting part. And you don't even do that because I'm going to have the money set up to direct deposit to any account you want, like clockwork. Okay? And keep in mind, I'm planning on buying it during the term of the lease. Tenant's not going to do that. You're going to get this property back in some kind of condition with a tenant. With me, I'm a tenant for a little while until we buy it. Okay, and you do want to sell it, don't you? Isn't that why we're having this conversation? That's the way you handle that one. Sometimes you'll get the seller who really likes what you're saying, but is just hell-bent on getting the property sold and getting their money and running, and they really like you a lot, and they'll start begging you in this way. They'll say, well, couldn't you just buy it the normal way? If you really want the house, couldn't you just buy it the normal way? Since I just can't, I just don't think I can deal with monthly payments and waiting like that. Now that's reasonable, right? Totally reasonable. So our answer is, yeah, yes and no. Let's do this. Let's just agree on the lowest price that you can accept, okay? And we'll write it up like that. Give me 90 days to close on it. I'm going to go out to my market of buyers and see who's going to be able to fund the purchase immediately or within a few weeks. I'm going to try to get more out of my buyer because there's benefits they have to working with me than what I'm giving you. But let's agree on the lowest price you'll take, and then let me take it out to my market. My market's 20 times bigger than yours. Let's see where we land. But remember now, I'm going to get paid by getting a little higher price than what you and I agree on. Is that something that'll work for you? I'll buy it the normal way if you're willing to do that. Okay, we get 90 days. Now we have a contract. We could assign it. We can do a simultaneous close. We can use a technique that I call using a memorandum of agreement, which I'm going to talk to in like 3 or 4 weeks from now when we go through contracts and show you how all that works. The other thing you can do here is, I got a delivery guy here, but I think it's just Amazon or something. If you get to this point, you can also just get, oh wait, isn't this what I just said? Oh yeah, no. So you could do it my way, but if you're a realtor, right, what a great segue into, you know what your best bet is just to get, let me go ahead and get this thing listed for you because you're going to need professional representation. And there's nobody better at it than me. Remember, I didn't come to you trying to solicit a listing. I came to you trying to buy it. And these are the terms under which I can buy the property. But it doesn't sound like you want to sell it where you'd be taking monthly payments for a little while, even though you'll get more money. And that's totally cool. But I can give you the next best thing, which is get the most money by representing you and attracting that buyer who is going to pay retail price and bring in a bank loan to get everybody cashed out. So why don't I come out to the house, and if you like me and I like the house, then we'll get down. Fair enough? And so you do that if you're a realtor, and if you're not a realtor, do what I said previously. Just get an agreement. Okay? You'll get people who will say, well, I am thinking about trying to sell it on my own for just like a month or so, and then I'm going to list it with a realtor. You want to be in play for that, right? So, okay, but keep in mind, the realtor is not going to make your payment for you when they finally get it, and I will. So how many more payments are you going to make before that realtor even finds a buyer, and how long is it going to take you to get it closed after that? Are you good with that? Are you good with making all those payments for several months when you have a ready, willing, able buyer right here that can get this off your plate now? And whatever they say, you don't beg and plead. We just move them down the line, move them down the spectrum of what kind of deal structure we're gonna deploy. And then this is the one I just saved for the end because too many investors are doing things that it's just shady, and to me it's I don't want to go so far as to say it's unethical, but it is actually arguably illegal. Certainly if you're a realtor, you shouldn't do this. But I don't like when investors mess with realtors' contracts. In other words, if somebody says the house is already listed with a realtor, and then you're like, oh, well, can you, where they interfere with that agreement in some way. Now, there's a soft way to do it that I am okay with, because sometimes the realtor, it's just a flat fee listing. Sometimes, where they did the listing themselves and they can cancel it at any time. Sometimes it's their sister or their friend, and that person will take it off at any time. But if it's somebody who went through the trouble of actually getting the listing, I'm not going to try to interfere with their arrangement. You don't want people interfering with the deal that you have. So usually what I'll say, well, if you already have a listed with a realtor, we probably can't work with you right now because that realtor's going to be unlikely to be willing to wait to get paid their commission, and we're not going to want to bring, a big old commission to the table when we close. So, but let me ask you this: if we did come to an agreement, your realtor, they'd have to release the listing, or we'd have to wait until their agreement with you expires. So tell me, is the realtor, are they a relative or a friend of yours, and when does it expire? And then you just make a note when to follow up with them. But don't push on that, because you don't want to be making enemies with. I just don't think you want to be making enemies with realtors. Some of them have nothing better to do than to start making complaints about how you're interfering with their contract. And there is an actual tort. It's called tortious interference with a contract that you can be sued for, and you'll probably lose if you're sending emails to them, hey, cancel the contract with the realtor so you can sell it to me. That's tortious interference with the contract by my read of it. So don't be doing stuff like that. All right, again, another reason to get coaching, because we can help you through some of these nuances, help you stay out of trouble, and grease the pathway so that you can slide into the bank with checks that you can deposit because you have help along the way. Do you want to navigate a minefield with a map, or do you want to navigate a minefield by somebody who's went through that minefield 20, 50, 100, 500,000 times and can get you to the other side without any landmines blowing you up? Okay? And excuse the metaphor with everything that's going on in the world today. It's probably inappropriate. But nonetheless, I hope you all are safe. I hope you are well. I'm going to come in here and check out these comments. Or maybe I'll just take a quick look here. So, hey, I see Glenn's in here. Lee, what's going on, my man? Matt, hey, bud. Hey, Brenda. No, it's not cut, Brenda. I just have it behind my back or behind my head, whatever they call it, a man bun or whatever they call that. But I don't have a man bag and I don't have a mangina going, so I should be okay with this thing behind my head here. Terms doggy, I like it. Freddie in the house. What up, Freddie? Freddie's the man. And hey, Scott, my Vegas neighbor. What's going on, kid? And yeah, exactly, Glenn. Glenn is Rob. So anyway, y'all, those are the live comments. So anybody who comes in here and is watching this on replay, let me know if you have any questions about any of this, and I'll try to answer them. But anyway, hope you all have a wonderful day. I'm going to probably check out some basketball today. I don't know who I'm going to bet on. I'm just doing terrible in the tournament as far as betting goes, but I don't bet a whole lot of money on it because it just doesn't make sense to do that. In my view anyway. So, all right, everybody, have a wonderful weekend. I'll catch up with you later. Appreciate y'all. Bye.